Oh,
before we.
okay, we are we're live. Okay.
Yeah, I hit the go live button and then I got another go live button. So yeah, if you're joining us live, hello. If you're joining us in the future recorded, hello. We're gonna start. We're gonna
Same
start
thing. It didn't
recording.
make a difference.
I know, right? We're gonna start recording our weekly live streams live, probably Fridays starting in January. So stay tuned on that. But we're a little special treat here, I guess. We're going live. So hello.
Yeah, testing stuff out. Right.
Yeah, testing live, literally.
Yeah, yeah.
Prod on
Live
Friday.
testing
Let's
live.
go.
Yeah, yeah. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah, man. How you been?
I'm good, good. I'm traveling a little bit. It's been nice seeing other parts of the world. I've been
Yeah.
holed up in Puerto Rico for a little bit, so coming back to the mainland. I forgot how nice cold weather can be, but not too much.
Yeah.
So, how are you doing?
I'm good. I've started taking up roasting coffee.
Yeah, yeah, you showed me some pictures. This is really cool.
Yeah.
I hope you explain a little bit on
So I'm
why.
like
Why? I think
super
why is the
caffeinated.
important.
I've been drinking coffee
Okay.
all day now. But it's like 4:30 local time. So,
Hey,
I'm
you're a programmer now. You're an engineer. It's the
that's
lifeline.
great. But yeah, no, it's been good. But yeah, we may talk a little bit about that. But I just put in the chat for folks to look at, and we'll put it in the show notes. But I never thought I'd hear myself say this, but NBCnews.com had an article that caught
Oh,
my
plug in. Yeah, yeah.
and it is, in case I forget to put it in the chat or in the show notes, is brain rot real? Researchers warn of emerging risks tied to short form video. And it's a pretty decently written article. They talk about a lot of different studies. Um, there was a review of 71 studies in September, and then again in October there was a paper that went through and kind of looked at the almost like a literature review with a little bit in depth diagnosis. Um, Not to bury the lead, but yeah, it does. It turns out what you interact with and what you do actually does shape your brain. And I think I've said on the podcast, and I think you said on the last live stream, I'm really worried about what this does to kids as they're developing. Like once you're an adult and you've kind of developed and learned critical thinking and learned how to focus and learned how to do stuff you don't necessarily like, you get through it. But when
Mhm.
that's all you know and that's all you're being fed, it's a pretty terrifying world. And then we add AI on top of it, and it just gets weirder.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think brain rot, I think is a slang term technically. I
Yeah.
don't think that there's and anytime you're dealing with slang, there's always interpretation around the what it means, right? So I
Yeah.
think the immediate thing or the immediate definition of brain rot is it sort of uh, something that deteriorates your I think maybe your current mental state. I don't know if in the article, I did not read the full thing, if
Yeah.
it talks about what longer term impacts it has. So I think the longer term stuff we've talked about before on the cast is the really dangerous piece because there's just not enough time to know what the effects are, and it's very difficult to measure long term effects of any individual technology or effect. So what you're talking about with the immediate, yes, it does. But I think even in the long term, your answer is for sure, yes, it does. We've seen it in the past with technological tools. So there's no reason why it wouldn't. I don't know if brain rot is the correct term, but for the most part, it seems to fit the effect that we might be seeing.
Yeah, and I think to be clear for folks, like your brain isn't like, actually
Deteriorating.
rotting,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
but the way that you think, the way that you process, the way that you retain information, especially short-term information or the ability to focus is really being disrupted. And so in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, we saw like the advent of like ADHD was really popular and really common. And then we found out maybe that's just how people are.
Mhm.
Um, but attention was a big thing, and kids were less and less focused. I think kids are even less and less focused now. Technology definitely, impacts that. Uh, but the rot is really I almost actually, now that I come thinking about it out loud, trying to explain this, I think that brain rot is a terrible term because it's really attention rot.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's sort of the extension of what happens when your attention is constantly taken away from you. Maybe a side effect.
Yeah, and it's even worse because, like, if your brain was rotting, at least it would be obvious, right? You'd be, like, losing ability to
Yeah, yeah,
function and, like,
yeah.
speech or
Mental
whatever.
siphoning. Yeah, it's like mental
Yeah.
siphoning.
And, but with attention, attention is everything. If you can't focus on reading, stuff, you're not learning. If you can't focus on listening stuff, you're not learning. You're gonna be a less, like, good person overall or a less good member of society because you just that critical skill to be able to unlock higher levels of anything is kinda going away. And to your point, they didn't get into long term, and they was more of a call for, we need to study this more,
Mhm.
but anyone who's talked to anybody under the age of, like, 17 is probably
Oh,
deeply concerned. I would say anyone under the age of, like, 30 is kinda warped, and, like but it's also pervasive. The biggest onset of, like, early dementia is happening in people, in their 50s now. And, like, is that diet, environmental, etcetera? Probably, but is it also using your brain less? Probably.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I think as you're explaining, it's also important to distinguish that it the attention stuff, and I think closely correlated with short form content or like the quick things that kind of take your attention away. I don't think it's necessarily saying that short form content ends up being brain on, right? You can have short form content that's engaging, that draws people attention in a positive manner, right? So
Yeah.
someone who's really engaged in learning can use short form content to learn more effectively. So I just want to call that out as short form doesn't necessarily mean brain rot, but short form and attention and taking your attention away, I think are closely linked. But it's important not to jump to one conclusion or the other without considering the opposite, right? And that was kind of
Yeah.
why we did the live AI debate. Was AI good or bad? It wasn't meant to push one or the other. It was just trying to get people to look at both sides.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a good point, but with everything, like, people do, you start optimizing for, like, what you,
Yeah,
measure or what
yeah.
you are focusing on. And the lack of focus, uh, means that everything basically bar lowers, and now
Mm.
you're in a competition for the shortest forms. Like, to your point, like, if you need to learn how to do, how to, like, cook a turkey dinner. We just had Thanksgiving. You can read a Cliff Notes version. You don't have to sit there and watch a turkey cook for 12 hours to be able to synthesize how to cook a turkey properly, right? Well, probably. Some people might need to sit there for 20 hours, but, like, whereas, it it's the short term, isn't necessarily bad, but it prevents that long-term repetitive learning failure model, that what do they call it? The 5,000 hours of practice or it's 10,000 hours
And
of practice to become
I mean, it's yeah, widely questionable or questioned whether it's 10,000, but the idea, yeah, be
yeah,
getting
but well,
the
the
diligent
idea
practicing, yeah,
exactly. I mean, like, every time you put a number on something, people dispute it, but
yeah,
the point is that you have to do something for a
100%.
really long time in order to really master it and get good at something. And what I'm
Deliberately too, deliberately. That's the key
yeah.
part. Is yeah.
And what I think I'm really concerned about with all the short form content is that there's a lot of attention going into creating good short form content. Like, we do YouTube shorts on the podcast. They get tons of views sometimes, sometimes not at all. I don't really tend to get super into, like, making the world's greatest short. Some people do, and there's a lot of time and energy. And so, like, to your point earlier, it's nice to take a really complex thing, break it down into this nice little package that's really easy to, like, quote unquote understand, or, like, get you a really good understanding of. But I think a lot of people also mistake that then for mastery.
Mm,
And they uh, they think that they now are they know more than they
Or leading
actually
expert,
do,
yeah, Dunning-Kruger
and
effect kind of deal.
they have put in the effort. Like, I was just reading a post on LinkedIn from a founder, I think he was in his, like, mid-20s, and he was basically like, "We don't need to learn anything, we just need to do, and
Mm,
action is all that matters." And it's like, well, yeah, in a startup, you definitely wanna be doing things. You don't wanna just be sitting around talking about stuff. But I just that post really struck me as a lack of wisdom, which is applied knowledge.
yeah.
So, not acknowledging what other people have learned in using that is ignorant, and that's
Yeah,
ignorant.
I was gonna use ignorance as the thing, but I think lack of wisdom is maybe a more polite way to say it.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm really concerned about with these short attention span things is someone will watch a log cabin, how to build a log cabin in the woods. I'm sure everybody's seen something kinda like that, and it's like, "Oh, in 45 seconds, he built a cabin, that's easy."
It's easy until you try it.
Right?
Yeah.
And, like, great on those people who, again, make really complicated things seem really easy but I do feel like it's the Pavlov idea of the more you're exposed to stuff over and over and
It's
over and
conditioning, yeah.
over again, you're just like, "Oh, well, that's easy. Oh, everything is really easy now," or like, and then you encounter something that's challenging and you lose the ability of perseverance, and then you get into this, like, doom loop of, like, you know, I saw the video and it was so easy. I tried it and do it. And I think a lot of people then move on and they just assume that they can't be good at something. And I think that's,
Yeah.
whether or not your attention gets cooked or your brain rots or whatever terminology we're using, and to some extent, I don't care. Like, I think it's bad, but I don't care. I'm more concerned about the harder to measure elements of this kind of stuff and how social media has already cooked our society. You can't have a nuanced discussion online. I'm not convinced you can have a nuanced discussion in person anymore.
Mm,
Like, the US is bombing boats in the Gulf coming out of,
Venezuela,
Venezuela. I'm
yeah.
not gonna opinion that. It's a fact that's happening. There was a congressional hearing that was held. The Democrats came out and, "This is obviously war crimes." The
Mm,
Republicans came out, "Nah, this is totally fine." Like,
mhm.
it can't be, right? There is always nuance in this stuff, but the fact that 12 people saw the exact same evidence, heard the exact same debate, and either don't have the wherewithal or the fortitude to, like, quote unquote cross the political spectrum to say yes, this absolutely was a war crime, or no, this was absolutely
Mhm.
justified by the evidence. But it's always two polar perspectives everywhere all the time, and I don't think the short form content stuff helps that at all.
No, I don't. I think you're absolutely doesn't, and I think this is very tightly coupled with the attention problem that we have talked about in the past. And I want to bring it back to what you were saying is we need to talk about it because it's like the slippery slope kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Right now, it's quote unquote brain rot, and some people maybe don't care about that. But when you have large enterprises that control the algorithms that feed you the content to go down that slippery slope, you are not always aware of the reasoning behind why they showed you all the content. So when you're sort of conditioned to see these types of things over and over again, you slowly move towards
yeah.
normalized behavior. That's where it gets very very risky and scary on a societal level. So yes, brain rot I think is real. I think it has been real to be honest. It's just becoming more and more front and center with the evolution of short form content. That being said,
Merry Christmas.
we like to take perspectives on both sides. So
Yeah.
we were talking before a little bit about AI in general, right? So AI
Yeah.
facilitates some of the short form content stuff, but there's some good stuff that happens out of it as well, right?
Well, and I think, like, I talk a lot about the problems. The solutions are hard, and I don't know that I have solutions for some of this stuff. I've been thinking about the short form stuff and the ability to talk and have a debate, and uh, more people just need to put the foot down and stop with the technology stuff. And I think like deleting social media on your phone, making you have to seek it out, having limits when you seek it out. Apple has screen time. I know Android has a similar function that'll, for you said basically a timer. If you're in the app for so many minutes, it'll say, "Hey, you shouldn't do that." And then you have to have the discipline to not click the "Let me do more" button.
I think the discipline's the key part. You can probably do it
Yeah.
all with discipline, but yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, but I mean, I've removed all the social media from my phone now. It's weird because like, I have to use it because of, like, the
Yeah, you're
podcast
in a
and
weird
stuff,
position.
but,
Yeah, yeah.
at the same time, though, I took it off my phone. I don't need it on
Mm.
my phone. It yes, it's a little less convenient if I, like, need to quick, like, do something, I gotta go grab my computer or something, whatever. But, I think more people need to do that. It's so easy even to get on the news sites now and look at, the drip feed of all the news, and so to help get your attention span back and to help regain that focus, like, number 1 is, like, stop making it easy for you to be distracted and look at all this content, and, like, yeah, maybe that sucks a little bit, but, like, you'll survive. I think step 2 is then purposefully and intentionally start to do longer term things that are harder. So, like, cooking might be a good example of, if you gotta make everything from scratch, it takes a little bit longer.
Making
And
coffee.
yeah, roasting. Um, get some puzzles or, Legos are a thing that a lot of people I know, in tech are into. Beading, crochet, pick up a skill like that because to make a scarf, like, see a 10-second clip or whatever on YouTube or Instagram, and it looks really easy until you try to do it, and then you realize that it takes hours and hours and hours to do. But by doing something that there is no shortcut to, that you
Mhm.
have to put in the work to get it done. Coloring is another one, if you don't
Mm.
color, paint by numbers. A lot of adults do that now, apparently. It soothes anxiety and all sorts of
Wow.
shit. But yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to do it. You have to focus, and that helps build those pathways, and then that'll apply to other things, right? It's like I don't wanna interrupt you. You look like you have something
No, no, I was
imminent.
gonna say I wasn't expecting this to be why am I brain farting on the word? An advice podcast or like
Yeah,
giving actionable advice. But one thing I did want to mention, like you're talking about all these things, and behavior change is hard, but you don't
yeah,
go from 0 to 100, right? You incrementally get there. You take steps and do things progression in a progression, right? So
yeah,
going off of social media, it's not like you. For some people, maybe it works, but you don't delete all of your social media off the phone right away. Maybe you get another phone, maybe, or you start with the screen locks, or then you upgrade to moving it all to a different phone. So it's like you can take steps along the way, and it's not just like, oh, I need to do this, so I'm going to do it immediately. I do think a lot of people tend to feel like that's kind of not necessarily the shortcut way, but they want to get there immediately, so they jump to the final. This is how it must be, but we're humans, and we need
yeah.
time to sort of adapt to situations.
Yeah, well, and I don't really want it to be an advice podcast, but it's I there's, like, so much going on, everything's moving so fast, and the reality is the world's always moved this fast. It's just
Mhm.
you didn't have it in your pocket
You didn't realize it,
when you were a
yeah.
kid, right? Like, it used to take at least a day for the newspaper to, like, get the story, record the story, report the story, put it on the news, paper, send it out, via a person to get to your mailbox. It used before that, it would take, weeks to get news
Via
sometimes.
telegram or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, with the advent of, short form, radio and telegraphs and all this other stuff, like, it still took time to get it dispatched and to, reach you. Now it's a drip feed, so any way to disrupt that, I think, helps make everything better, but I'm trying to, like, focus more kinda going in, I guess, to 2026 with, like, um, more proactive things for people and then start really hammering on those because I it's one of those things where I think the solution's really simple, but it's so simple that nobody does
Mm.
it. right? It has to
Mm.
be harder. We have to have the right government. We have to have the right people. And it's like, no, it starts with us. Like if you stop drip feeding yourself all the time, then you'll have the focus to really start to think about what actually does matter. And is it the constant stream of shit information? Or is it like, you know, I had a bad day at work, how do I make it better? Or, my friend is down or whatever, right? It's like it really helps you regain perspective and focus on what actually matters and not what you're told matters to you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I think
Intentionally.
that yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, I was gonna say, I bring it back. We talked a little bit about, how to get started podcasting, right? It's very simple. I think a lot of people start looking for like formulas or the right way to do things or a prescription for something. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. Start with the basic things and you can start moving right away. You don't need the expensive setup to start podcasting. Just go
Yeah.
ahead and do it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, awesome.
Now is a good time to pivot to AI.
I mean, it goes from short form content, which recently has been closely related to AI. But
Yeah.
yeah, we were talking a little bit before about having a dual perspective, bad stuff and then good stuff. So why don't you share what I think it's a good story. We should share because we work with AI all the time, and it's sort of like
Yeah.
just giving a perspective on how we think about things or do things.
Yeah, I kind of was reflecting on this a little bit. It was yesterday or the day before, and I think AI makes me a better collaborator. I guess no, I'll stay with that. But
Well, I'm curious to hear what you were
I
going to say.
I know I think I mean I've always been a good collaborator, and I prefer to work in collaborative environments. But
Says
I
Andrew.
do I know, right? But I
Sorry, take a jab.
but I do think that AI working with AI in detail has really made it more apparent to me how hard it actually is to communicate stuff. And
Yeah.
so anyone who's worked with AI, you mash some text in a chat or whatever, and you get a thing, and it probably gives you something close to what you want or not. And then a lot of people just stop, right? They're like, it
Yeah.
didn't work the way I wanted it to. And then they move on. But the people who I find are successful with AI are then asking that question of like, why didn't it get what I wanted? Or how do I make it do that? And sometimes just going back and forth will refine it. But what I found out is, or what I've really come to find, especially with the newer models that have been released in the last, few weeks or months,
Good ones. Yeah.
is giving it the right context up front in the first interaction will radically change how you refine. And it's kind of that, like, same idea of, like, start with the big picture and then boil down into the details, like, as you need to finish stuff. And I suspect a lot of people start with the details
Mhm.
first. I want this very specific thing, and then it didn't do it, so I don't like it, it doesn't work, it's dumb.
Yeah.
But giving it the context of, trying to think of something, maybe I could pull up a chat and just, like, go through it because I find that like, oh yeah, when I generate thumbnails for the videos,
Mhm.
my process has come down to roughly, I have a big instruction prompt that I give it, and I think uh, prompt engineering is something a lot of people talk about. I think now it's more prompt library context. So
Sure.
give the LLM or whatever chat program you're using a big context document. You don't
And
have to
then start
write it every
chaining.
single
Yeah. Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? And so I have that, and then I give it the context of the podcast. So I'll screen clip, you and I, or whomever I'm interviewing, and I'll say, this is a podcast. This is going to be a YouTube thumbnail, not just a thumbnail, a YouTube thumbnail, because there's a certain style, or you have to look surprised and have your mouth open, and like everything's new and
Yeah.
unknown. Sorry, folks, that's how it is. If we don't do that, then no one views. It's weird, but it's true. Thanks, Mr. Beast, I guess. And then, colors and that kind of stuff. If you have specific branding you want, mentioning that up front. That is tremendous. I get a tremendously different result when I give it the context of the podcast that it's YouTube. I have some, general guidelines that I give it versus here's two people make a thumbnail for a video.
Mm,
And I suspect most people are doing here's the two people make a
so
thumbnail for the video. They get maybe it's an okay result. Maybe you're fine with it. Most people are probably like, this sucks. I don't like it.
mhm.
Um, and then from there, I'll pick out elements. And like Gemini specifically has got, I use that probably the most. It's gotten really, really good at, upper left corner, take the lamp out and change it to whatever giving it more description about how to interact with it versus then having to change the entirety of the image. And this is the
Yeah,
same for anything you're doing with generative AI. But yeah, so I found through that it's like kind of like explain it to me like I'm 3. You have to with
mm,
AI because it's really dumb, and the way that, they're designed and the design and engineering decisions that are being made are trying to make it easier for folks, so you're getting more kind of generalizable stuff, but if you actually wanna kinda unlock the power, you have to really give it the right amount of detail too. You don't wanna sit there and explain every single little I want, you know, um, these
use
tools in the
yeah,
script, right? It's like, here's the I'm trying to build a production workflow for this thing using this data. Here's what the data looks like. Here's what I'm expecting the output to be. What's the best way to do it? Not, I need a Go script that will call this parser library to
I mean,
do this
sometimes
thing.
that works, but yeah,
Right, and
sometimes that's
sometimes you
great.
need to be that specific, and it's okay, but, like, I find a lot of times, like, it'll give you something, and it'll probably be crap because you say you didn't tell it, "I'm integrating this into an existing code base. Here's that code base," or, "Here's what that code base does, and it also needs to function within this own," right? And so I know, I mean, you do a little bit more of the detail stuff. I know we were talking a little earlier about the domain
Yeah, yeah.
specific stuff,
I
but,
I I think the
what
way
do you
you
think?
you set that up, the way you set that up was perfect. The idea of working with AI as a way to train your collaboration ability is a great setup because anytime I've recommended people work with I think they kind of go down the path that you laid out, where they test it out with something. They don't know too much about prompting. They just kind of say something, and it doesn't give them what they want. They're like, this sucks. I
Yeah,
don't want to do this, right? But the whole purpose of me suggesting working with it is when you ask it something or when you tell it to do something and it gives you something you don't want, figure out what you need to do to get it to do what you wanted it to do in the first place. And that's the whole collaboration element. I think an image example is a really good kind of
yeah,
way to walk through it is you have, because an image is so complicated, it's very difficult to describe in words what you want. And this was one of the big issues with the image generators of the past was when you created
yeah,
something, it kind of just threw in random stuff. But now, if you're working with a very, very good image generation model like Nano Banana, you can just give it something to work with, and then it gives you a canvas, and there's something on there. You're like, well, I didn't want this. I wanted it to be a little bit more like that. So there is this back and forth where you're learning how to collaborate
yeah,
with the AI and creating what you want it to do. And those skills translate outside of the tech, outside of it's working with a human, right? It's the same stuff you do when you're working with a human. It's like, well, this is great, but I wanted this, this, and this, or what if we did this, this, and that? So
yeah.
I think when people start to see an LLM or an agent in that manner and you learn how to collaborate with it, you absolutely upskill in your collaboration ability. So
Human
good
collaboration
example.
ability to be specific,
Human
right?
collab exactly, exactly. And
Well,
one more thing I did wanted to highlight the context stuff you were talking about. We've talked about context engineering in the past, but I think it extends beyond working with an LLM. It's very concrete when you're working with the LLM because you know there's a finite amount of information to give it. But when you're working with people, you're also doing some context engineering. If you have a task for
yeah,
someone, you have to let them know within what space they're working with. As a PM, I'm sure you're aware, you let an engineer go wild and they're going to go wild. So
yeah,
you have to be very
100%.
specific with what you want them to do. So again, not using these terms to refer specifically to working with LMs, but also taking into the real world and use the same ideas, not the same terms, but the same ideas when you work with other people. And it's a good way to practice.
Yeah. No, 100%, and I think, like, it's funny because I find that it's easier to work with people than AI still, because people
Mm.
will generally ask intelligent questions or can be learned to do
Keyword
that.
generally. Keyword generally. But yeah.
Whereas AI, the AIs that I've been testing by default don't. And we've talked about this on, I think, the How to Use AI podcast, but giving it specific instructions to ask clarity and not make assumptions is key to really unlocking a lot of the power there too, because it's all the companies seem to be trying to make it easy to work with, which,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
fine, but uh I personally value output, action, quality over, like, do I like working with it? If I don't like working with it, but it's actually providing me a good output, then I'm okay with it. Like, sure, I'd love to like it,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like the nice problem is that AI is too nice and it doesn't wanna,
Yeah.
like,
Sure. Sure.
ruffle your feathers versus being kind. And someone who's kind would say, "Nathan, you look really sloppy today. Can you put on a tie next time?" Whereas nice would be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you look really great, Nathan."
Yeah.
But, it that's kind of become pervasive in our culture, and to the point where the technology is trying to mimic that, and a lot of people get uncomfortable, and you just gotta get over it.
Mm.
And it's like not being an asshole. You can be an asshole to AI. It's a fucking technology. Can I say that on YouTube Live? I don't know. Guess we'll find out.
Well, you'll find out.
It
Yeah.
could be our last YouTube Live. The YouTube
They gotta give
police
you
will
a
come
warning.
for me.
No, you should get a warning or something like that.
I know. I
But yeah.
believe in free speech. I should be able to say what I want. But it's there's a difference between, being intentionally mean or cruel or being honest. And with an AI, it doesn't matter because it's not a person. I'm a little concerned people are just going to learn to be assholes all the time to get
Yeah, that's 100%.
results. And then that'll
Yeah.
bleed into the real world too. Like, I'm sure it's going to happen if it hasn't already. But I think it's a good way for folks to kind of practice like having a harder conversation too. Like,
Yeah.
so much of the work environments I've been in the last probably 4 years have been really leaning into like too much nice and not enough kind.
I
So
like that. Too much nice, not enough kind.
yeah. So I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah. Be kind, not nice. Is that the takeaway?
Yeah. Nobody likes nice people. Nobody likes kind people either, but they're more likely to actually benefit from kindness instead of niceness.
All right. Awesome.
All right. We'll see you live in January. We're going to continue weekly through the end of the year. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Since
till
we're
next
trying
time.
to do more lives, let us know what you guys want to talk about
Yeah.
in the comments and stuff.
Yeah.
Or
Podcast at
even better,
3reate.com.
join the lives and
Yeah.
chat. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's way more fun to have these conversations and then bring in other people's opinions as we're going. So appreciate
Yeah.
everyone streaming live and listening in the future / present. Time is weird.
Yeah. Time is weird, man.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care, everybody.
You can find us at 3reate.com. It's like the word create, but with a 3 instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. Thanks for listening.